resolution of a vector in IJK format. So far we have discussed that we can represent a vector by two ways. The first way is the graphical way, in which we represent the vector by an arrow. The direction of the arrow is the direction of the vector, and the magnitude of the vector can be represented by drawing the arrow to a suitable scale. The other more mathematical way of representing vector is the IJK format. The two ways of representation are interconvertible. That means a vector represented in IJK format can be represented in the graphical format by an arrow, and the vector represented in graphical form by an arrow can be represented in the IJK form. In this lecture, we are going to discuss the later part. That means how is that we are going to represent a vector represented in graphical form by an arrow into a vector representation in IJK format. So let us say there is a vector A represented by an arrow as shown. So this is the vector A. How can we represent it in the IJK format? That means how is that we can write this vector in rectangular form? The procedure is very simple and straightforward. The first step is step 1. Draw x and y axis from the tail of A. So this is the x-axis and this will be the y-axis. And let us call these points as O and A. The step 2. Draw perpendicular from A to x and y axis. So first we draw perpendicular to the x-axis and then we draw perpendicular to the y-axis. The third step, find the intercept on the x-axis. So this is the intercept of the perpendicular on the x-axis. We call it x component of the vector A. Let us give this dimension a name AX. So this is AX. Then find the intercept on the y-axis. So this is the intercept of the perpendicular on the y-axis. We call it y component of the vector A. Let us call it AY. Now, if you look here, there is a triangle OBA, and in this triangle, it is very easy for us to say from the triangle law of vector addition, A vector will be equal to OB vector plus BA vector, where this is the OB vector and this is the BA vector. OB vector is nothing but AXI cap vector, because the magnitude of OB is same as AX, and BA vector is nothing but AYJ cap, because the magnitude of BA is AY, and therefore we can say A vector is equal to AXI cap plus AYJ cap, and thus the vector A, which was represented in graphical form by an arrow, can be represented in rectangular form by AXI cap plus AYJ cap, where AX and AY are the x and y component of the vector. The magnitude of A can be very easily found from the Pythagoras theorem. A vector modulus will be equal to under root of AX square plus AY square, and the direction A vector makes with the x-axis is also very easy for us to find. Let us say this angle is theta. So in this triangle, tan theta will be equal to AY upon AX, and from simple trigonometry we can say AX will be equal to A modulus into cos theta, and AY will be equal to A modulus into sin theta, where AX and AY are called as x and y component of the vector, and therefore we can say A vector to be equal to modulus of A cos theta I cap plus modulus of A sin theta j cap, because AX is equal to modulus of A cos theta and AY is equal to modulus of sin theta. Thus any vector whose magnitude and the angle it makes with the x-axis is known can be represented as A vector is equal to A cos theta I cap plus A sin theta j cap. In the graphical form of vector representation, we know the magnitude of the vector and we know the direction it makes with the x-axis by knowing the angle theta. If we want to represent the vector in the rectangular form, that is the IJK format, we can say a vector will be equal to a cos theta I cap plus a sin theta j cap, where a is the magnitude of vector and theta is the angle the vector makes with the x-axis. Let us discuss an example. A 5 Newton force is acting at 30 degrees from the x-axis. We know that force is a vector, we know the magnitude of the force 5 Newton, and we know the direction it makes with the x-axis. We want to represent this vector in rectangular form. That means I want to represent this vector in the IJK format. So this is the 5 Newton force which acts at an angle of 30 degrees from the x-axis. How is that I can represent it mathematically in the IJK format? As we have just discussed, I can write F vector equal to 5 cos 30 I cap plus 5 sin 30 j cap, where 5 sin 30 is the intercept on the y-axis of the perpendicular drop from the head of A on the y-axis. So this is the length 5 sin 30, which is the y component of the vector, and 5 cos 30 is the intercept on the x-axis from the perpendicular drop from the head of A on the x-axis. And this is the length 5 cos 30, which is the x component of the vector. And the force in rectangular form or the IJK format can therefore be represented as 5 cos 30 I cap plus 5 sin